Okay, so let's get going with this inquiry-based geometry thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch from me looking at the screen, and I'm going to show you a visual from a camera that I have just below here. So let me just turn that on, and we'll switch to the view like that. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be kind of filling out this book as we go through the inquiry. And so I'm going to have a physical record. And I think if you're following along at home, having a physical book like this to write on is a great way to kind of just keep track of what we're doing. I'm also going to be trying out some of these ideas on my little nieces and see how they respond to some of the questions. And it's always nice to see how other people think and, inquire and learn about geometry when asked the same questions. So what I want to do is I want to start at the very beginning. And what is the most basic idea in geometry? Like, what is the one thing that anchors everything? And, when you think about it, a single point, a single reference point in space is probably one of the most important things that we need to think about, because unless we have a reference point, how do we determine anything else? Like, where is something if you don't have a reference point, or where are you going if you don't have a reference point? So pretty quickly, the most simple idea in geometry is going to be the single point. But that's a little bit, by itself, not that insightful. But if I draw a second point, then I can start to think about the relationship between those 2 points. Okay? So the inquiry now begins. The inquiry is, what sort of relationships can there be between these 2 points? Or maybe I could ask, how many different ways could you connect these 2 points? So I want you to think for a moment and, in your own book, or pause the video and think like, well, how many different ways could I connect these 2 points? And I'm going to give you a moment to do that. And then I'm going to kind of just brainstorm with you, like, what are the different ways we can get between these 2 points? And often in geometry, a good thing to do is, label one of the points with a letter. And we often use a capital letter. So, let's say we're starting at point A and we're going to point B. Okay, so I'm going to go with some of my ideas now. The one way of doing it would be to go something like that, I guess. Another way of doing it would be something like that. I suppose another way of doing it could be something like that. And what else could I have? I could have, I suppose I could do a bigger loop. And I could also do, if I really wanted to be interesting, I could do something like that. Now, those are all different ways of getting from A to B. Now, I want you to stop and think about that journey. If you had to try and describe these different ways, what are the main categories or ways we could distinguish between these different ways of getting from A to B? What can you do to list those different ways? And again, I encourage you to take a moment, stop the video, and just write down, like, if you had to describe, categorize these, how would you categorize them? Or what are the different ways you could differentiate between these different ways of simply getting from one point to another? Okay. So for me, and again, I have obviously thought about this for a while, one of the things that stands out is that if I'm going from A to B, it feels to me like quite a nice subdivision of these things is to talk about straight lines and curved lines. So, something up here, that would be a curved line. This for me would be a curved line. This one over here would be a straight line. This sort of tooth pattern is made up of quite a few straight lines, actually. It's, so maybe I would just say straight lines with a plural S there. And then this last one is a curved line, but it does something a little bit different? Okay. So it turns out if you've, kind of let your brain wander a bit, there's actually quite a few different ways to get from A to B. And, an important subdivision would be this idea that if you're going between two places or 2 points, you can think about the idea of a curved line or a straight line. And then from there, maybe you could even break them up further. Now, I want to end this lesson with one final question. I have 5 different ways of going from A to B at this stage on the page. Which of these ways do you think is the shortest? Okay, I'm going to leave that as the end of the lesson. Out of the 5 ways that I've put there, and maybe there's some other ones that you've come up, which of the ways do you think is the shortest distance, which is the one that is the shortest distance between A and B? And I want to leave you with that, and I want you to think about that and inquire about that, and we'll have a discussion about that in the next video. Okay, I hope that you've enjoyed this first proper lesson, and if it feels a bit different to normal maths, that's okay. It is meant to be thought-provoking at its heart. Okay, I'll see you next time.